Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a recent, highly charged broadcast featuring political commentators Benny Johnson and Jack Posobiec. We're going to look right past the heat of the rhetoric to see exactly how modern political media constructs its arguments. Look, we aren't here to validate or debunk anything. Instead, we're literally looking at the architecture of a narrative. How do commentators take completely disparate threads and weave them into a cohesive, highly polarized worldview? Let's get into it.
James Comey in a Borat Speedo arranging seashells while listening to Taylor Swift. Okay, vivid imagery, right? The hosts use this wildly absurd, highly visual hook to grab you. But they aren't just making a joke here. They're using this bizarre mental picture of the former FBI director to introduce a much darker, totally unverified theory about secret grand juries and sealed indictments. It is a classic rhetorical technique. You capture the audience's attention with something totally ridiculous, and then bam, you immediately pivot to a grave, high-stakes allegation. Because this source material leaps wildly between topics, here is the roadmap we'll use to organize the claims. 1. The Comey indictment claims. 2. Seashells and secret codes. 3. Motive, money, and perjury. 4. The broader political culture. And 5. Historical Bolshevik comparisons.
Moving into Section 1, the Comey indictment claims.
The central provocative premise of this entire broadcast is the allegation that former FBI Director James Comey is currently facing an unsealed indictment. And Posobiec's theory relies absolutely entirely on the concept of the dog whistle. That is, coded text, language, or phrases used to send a specific, hidden message to a particular group. Posobiec alleges that Comey isn't just, taking beach vacations. He claims Comey is using coded language and imagery on social media to actually call for political violence and assassinations. This definition is literally the linchpin of their entire argument, because without the concept of the dog whistle, an Instagram post is, just an Instagram post. With it, it transforms into a criminal act of incitement.
Section 2, Seashells and Secret Codes. What's fascinating here is how they connect casual, everyday social media activity to a massive conspiracy theory. Posobiec lays out a very specific timeline. He points to a trilogy of Instagram posts made by Comey, all on the exact same day. Hour 1, a post of him reading a book. Hour 2, the infamous photo of seashells on a beach. And Hour 3, a link to actually purchase a book, along with its description. Posobiec argues this absolutely wasn't just a random series of vacation photos, but a calculated promotional stunt masquerading as a hidden message. He claims that Comey's later explanation on Stephen Colbert's show, saying he and his wife just found the shells while walking, simply doesn't add up, framing this exact timeline as undeniable evidence of deliberate intent. And this really perfectly illustrates the irony the speakers are pointing out. They literally map the plot of Comey's own crime novel directly onto their accusations against him. According to Posobiec, the villain in Comey's novel uses secret codes to call on followers to conduct political assassinations. Sound familiar? Posobiec's argument is that Comey is doing exactly what the villain in his own book does, using dog whistles in the real world. By drawing this parallel, the hosts argue Comey clearly understands what a dog whistle is, which to them proves he had the intent and the strategy to execute one himself.
All right, Section 3, Motive, Money, and Perjury.
Because it's not enough to just claim he sent a hidden message, right? They need a motive. According to the broadcast, Comey's motive was entirely financial. They lay out a 4-step scheme. Step 1, conduct a dog whistle incitement to generate media headlines. Step 2, play the victim when people naturally react. Step 3, use all that newly generated attention to sell copies of his book. But Step 4 is what they claim is his ultimate downfall. This alleged scheme for wealth, according to the hosts, is exactly what triggered a grand jury investigation in a heavily Republican area of North Carolina. The hosts heavily emphasize a specific legal term here, asset forfeiture, which means receiving proceeds from a crime. They argue this is the missing piece of the puzzle. If Comey simply made a post, sure, it's free speech, but they argue, because he allegedly used that post to sell books, he received proceeds from a crime. They point to asset forfeiture as this big, blinking signpost that the grand jury believes Comey illegally made money from criminal behavior. In their eyes, that turns a simple social media post into a full-blown federal offense. To dial up the drama, the broadcasters characterizes this whole legal situation as Shakespearean and poetic justice. Why? Well, they claim Comey lied to federal agents about simply finding those seashells on the beach. And by allegedly lying to investigators, they argue Comey has fallen into the exact same type of perjury trap that he himself once set for General Michael Flynn during the early days of the Trump administration.
It's a clever narrative device, tying a current event directly back to a major historical grievance for their specific audience. That brings us to Section 4, the broader political culture. About halfway through the broadcast, the narrative zooms way out. They connect these specific claims about Comey to their overarching complaints about political double standards in America. To ground these broad claims in raw emotion, Benny Johnson shares a really intense personal anecdote. "We're leaving D.C. because it'll be our child or us next." He recounts witnessing a mob of Antifa and defund the police activists completely surround and threaten Jack Posobiec. Johnson says witnessing that terrifying event drove him to go home to his wife and declare they were moving their family out of Washington, D.C., entirely out of fear for their safety. Notice how this pivots the explainer from a complex legal theory about a former official directly into a narrative of immediate personal danger. Using that palpable sense of danger, the hosts string together some seemingly disparate entities to argue a much larger point. They connect Antifa carrying out mob violence to the Southern Poverty Law Center allegedly targeting conservative authors, all the way to what they view as a two-tiered justice system. They are arguing that an assassination culture has been completely normalized on the political left without any legal pushback. So how do they think we fix this? They argue the justice system needs to aggressively charge their political opponents and actually frog march them to show the public that this kind of behavior has serious consequences.
Finally, Section 5, Historical Bolshevik Comparisons.
In the concluding moments of the broadcast, the hosts elevate their warnings to a massive global historical scale. Posobiec recounts a conversation where someone asked him how a giant nation like the Russian Empire, with roughly 100 million people, could possibly fall to the Bolsheviks. His answer? There were only about 1,000 Bolsheviks. Just 1,000. But they succeeded because the general public simply didn't take them seriously. Posobiec applies this directly to today. He argues that current domestic threats, people willing to throw off morality and use vindictive tactics, will absolutely not stop unless they are met with an equal and opposite reaction. It is a stark, absolute warning to their audience. Take this seriously or lose the country.
Ultimately, analyzing a broadcast like this leaves us with a pretty vital question. Over the course of just a few minutes, we watch these hosts weave together everything from James Comey's Instagram seashells to a fictional crime novel to genuine personal fears of Antifa, all the way back to the Russian Revolution. Whether you completely agree with their conclusions or vehemently reject them, understanding how these narratives are constructed is so essential. It shows us exactly how deeply modern media relies on synthesizing totally disparate pieces of information to completely shape our worldview. So, what other narratives are being constructed around you every single day using these exact same techniques? Thanks for joining this explainer. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and we'll see you next time.